Welcome to the next video in the formulize tutorial series. In this video we'll talk about scope or group ownership of entries. Every entry in formulize is owned by a particular group or groups, and that is determined at the time the entry is created based on the groups that the user who creates it is a member of. So right now on screen I've got one entry showing belonging to Randy. Randy is part of the Rangers group, so when this entry was created, this entry was marked as belonging to the Rangers group. If a user is a member of more than one group, then more than one group is recorded as the potential owners of the entry. You can then use this information to control which entries you see based on the group membership or group ownership features of the users and the entries. So the default scopes are shown in the current view. The default choices you have available, they're shown in the current view drop-down list. So right now it's showing entries by all users in all groups. That's basically all entries. There's no scope control in effect there at all. There are some default choices here which are always available, and they include entries by me, which is obviously just entries you've created yourself. Now there are none that are showing up right now because I'm using the administrator account, and all the entries that have been created by actual users, not the administrators, so there's none by the administrator. Now if I say entries by users in my group, that's another choice. Again, none for the administrator, but for other users they would see entries that belong to the groups that they're a part of, and that may be more than one group. This is discussed a bit further in the permissions video, and if someone is a member of more than one group, then they're going to get an overlapping set of entries based on the users and groups that they're affiliated with. In this case, in this example, our users are members of only one group each. If we log out and switch to, for example, Rebecca, one of the other Rangers, just use whatever password you might have created for the users. And if Rebecca logs in and goes to this form, then when she sees entries by users in my groups, she sees, well, both entries belong to Randy and Victoria, Ranger and Volunteer. Now if you've seen the permissions video, you'll know that Rangers have a particular set of groups that's declared as the groups they can see entries for. They can see entries for Rangers and for Volunteers. Those are the two groups that they're basically assigned as their quote group scope. So when they see entries by all users in my groups, that's what is used. The default options there are entries by the groups that you yourself are a member of. So it depends in formulize whether you've assigned specific groups as the group scope, like we did for the Rangers, or whether you've just set essentially a floating group scope based on the groups that the users are part of. And there's also a choice, entries by all users in pick the groups. And so depending on what groups you're a member of or what groups have permission on the form, there will be a series of choices here. So if we just say show the volunteer group, then we can see just the volunteer entry. Now you'll notice the current view list changes now to say entries by volunteers, and sometimes it will dynamically change based on things that you have chosen or selected. We can change that to add Rangers and Volunteers, and well, there we go. Now the current view list has changed what it shows us, and the list has changed as well. So the scope of entries can be very useful and important, especially when you have a large and complex series of groups, and the group scope permission setting can be really important because it can let you for example, have a manager group for a department able to view the group of entries belonging to, say, the staff in their same department. Sometimes you don't want people to see their own group, you want them to see some other specific group. In other situations, you want people to see only their own groups of entries, such as maybe the staff in that example are able to see only their own. So which options are available will depend on the permissions. What entries they show you will depend on the permissions, and this can be an important part of how you set up formulize applications.